Are you convinced humanity's going to make it through these times?
It's a question of whether we'll reach critical mass. In this case, 7.5% of humanity. We will have enough people thinking in a certain way that the first domino will fall and the rest will follow. But what we have come to understand when we get this close to that marvelous place where we break through about who we are and why we're here and how we can make this all work, we engage in self-sabotage. We've been at this place a number of times in our species' history on this planet, and it could be that we're racing toward that same place. So the larger question is,
are you ready to shine? Shine bright. Woo-hoo! Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wondered what's going on with the world and what's your path in life, then do we have the Conversations with God show for you. Today, I'll be talking with Neale Donald Walsch, one of my all-time favorite guests and human beings, and the runaway New York Times #1 best-selling author of the Conversations with God series. We'll be talking about purpose, path, and direction in life, why we're here, and what in the world's going on. So welcome back to the show, Neale. Are you ready to shine?
I don't think so. So goodbye and thanks for being with me.
All right. Well, that made this show easy. So that really begets the question, because maybe that's why you're disappearing. Are you convinced humanity's going to make it through these times?
Yes, I really am, all kidding aside, but I don't think it's going to be as simple as I would like it to be, and it may not be as rapid as I had hoped, but I do think that we are going to survive. The question is not whether we're going to survive as a species. In my mind, the question is not, well, whether humanity will survive, but in what shape will we be and how many of us? Are we talking about, 100,000 people that wind up surviving and then regenerating the human race again, a fourth time? Or are we talking about the 8.5 billion people that are now existing on the planet? So the question is not whether we'll survive, but in what way and in what numbers.
Okay, so let's go there. And I didn't expect that we would need to go there. Are you feeling now that we're racing towards another reset button for humanity?
I think it could be. I don't think that it's assured. I don't think that it's guaranteed, but I think that it could be another, I like the way you put that, another reset button for humanity. We've been at this place a number of times in our species' history on this planet, and it could be that we're racing toward that same place again. But I think there's a way to avoid it, and I think that we can avoid it, and I think that's the opportunity that lies before us right now.
I want to dive into that. I do get to ask, though, in your conversations with God, is it free will, or what is it that each time so far we've gotten so close and then missed? Best way to put it.
I think it's free will. I think that part of the challenge for us as a species, we're a very immature species, relatively speaking, I mean. We're still, even though we've been around for quite a while, we're still, in the cosmic sense, a relatively young species. And I think that part of the challenge, Michael, is that what we have come to understand when we get this close to that marvelous place where we break through, where we get this far away from breakthrough, is that it seems too good to be true. What we have come to understand about who we are, why we're here, and how we can make this all work seems too good to be true. In fact, that was the exact experience I had when I was experiencing my own conversations with God. At one point, I said to her, this everything you tell me seems too good to be true. And he said, Neale, if God can't be too good to be true, who can?
Why are we so wired then? Is it just a societal thing? Is it just an immature species? Why are we so wired that when we think it's too good to be true, we create the very thing that we do not want to keep from it being true?
The why is because we think it's too good to be true. And so, it's what some psychologists would call self-sabotage. And I think that our species, both individually and collectively, engages in self-sabotage. Now, when you ask why, there's a different reason for every single person. But the larger answer to the question why is that I think we're afraid of what's on the other side.
Makes sense. Thinking of we had a series of miscarriages before we have our beautiful daughter. And I'm thinking of this spirit that was circling the runway. This is our way of painting the picture anyway. Circling the runway, circling this runway, circling the runway before she landed. That things needed to be in certain alignment. I would believe that we could choose for things to be in a certain alignment right now so that we can land that humanity, I call it the new human, at that higher level.
I think we can choose, but it's a question of whether we'll reach critical mass in the number of us who make that choice. That's the question before the House right now.
Now, what to you, and you talked about, let me see if I get this right. I've got this in my notes, an overhaul of humanity. What does that look like? And what's the number, that critical mass that we need, you believe, to make that positive shift or to make the runway sustainable for landing?
Well, sociologists tell us that critical mass is somewhere, interestingly enough, because I would have thought it would be a higher number, but they tell us that it's somewhere between 5 and 10% of the whole number. So we're talking about, 7.5%, roughly speaking, would be critical mass. When we reach the number of 7.5% of the whole number, 7.5, in this case, 7.5% of humanity, we will have enough people thinking in a certain way that the first domino will fall and the rest will follow. A number of years ago, I had an idea to start giving out every year what I called the First Domino Award. And I actually created a little plaque with a domino pasted to it and a little brass plate that named like Deepak Chopra, and I gave one to Marianne Williamson and others, what I call the First Domino Award. People who were choosing to be the first domino.
This gets to our purpose, our path, our direction. Are we all here? If we're attracted to this show, are we by design first dominoes?
Well, I have a interesting quarrel with the phrase by design, because the question becomes who designed us. I want to make sure that, at least in my understanding, that no one leaves this interview with an idea that God has a plan for us. Oh, God has a plan for Michael, God has a plan for Neale, and God has a plan for the first baseman for the New York Yankees. So it's not my understanding that God's sitting someplace designing or planning the outcomes in the lives of individuals around the world, to say nothing about individual sentient beings in the cosmos. Gazillion of those as well. So I don't think that God designs our lives. So it's not part of a grand design, but I do think it's part of a grand opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. Can we say that our soul chose this?
I think that the soul does not choose the events of our life, but chooses the expression that it wishes to experience. What aspect of the total true self does it wish to experience in any particular incarnation? In this lifetime, what does the soul of Neale wish to experience? Not in terms of specific events, like Neale's going to write a bestseller, or Michael's going to have a worldwide, podcast that he does, telecast. No, I don't think that soul designs events, but the soul, I think, does place into beingness opportunities to experience itself in particular and certain ways. So I think for instance, just to use a lighthearted example, I'm pretty sure that one of the things that my soul wants to experience, perhaps for the first time in many lifetimes, is patience. I think that my soul is working on that aspect of divinity called endless patience. And it's doing better now. You know, I'm doing better with that particular challenge than I was when I was 40. But you know, my time is running out. I don't have another 45 or 50 years left, so I'd better hurry up and get there. But I'm too impatient. The irony, the ironic.
There is in all of our years of knowing each other, and I don't know, since early on in the show, there is a greater, and I don't just say this as pandering or anything, there's a greater sweetness to you. Maybe that sweetness is coming out of the patience.
It's coming out of this patient for sure, because I am a patient in the hospital of God.
All right. Let us go from there and let's look big picture at things. You once called this the storm before the calm. Is the calm still coming?
Yes, as I mentioned a moment ago, I think it's on the way. The question is not whether it's still coming, because I do believe that it is, but the question is whether it'll arrive soon enough uh, prior to the annihilation, self-annihilation. Now, we're not going to get to a place, in my understanding, as I said a little moment ago, I don't think we're going to get to a place where we totally self-annihilate, but we could get to a place where there are only a few of us, relatively speaking, you know, maybe a couple of million out of 8.5 billion left. So the question is whether we can get there fast enough, whether we can, if I'd like to put it this way, the question is, are we going to win this human race?
Wow. Okay. Has the race changed since we last spoke?
Yes. Well, I'm not sure it's changed since we last spoke, because we only spoke last about it. It's 2.5 seconds ago.
Well, I mean, over a year ago, in September 2023. I think it was September 21st, 2023.
I kind of knew that you didn't mean 2.5 seconds ago, but it was just my ironic way of talking about since we last spoke. But no, I don't think it's changed in the past year or year and a half either. At least not dramatically. There have been obviously some changes. We have a new person ready to lead the government in the United States. We have some changes elsewhere that have taken place around the world. There's there are events going on uh, globally that were not going on a year and a half ago, but not at the level that I think we could well, place into the category of planetary change. So, I mean, in the past year and a half, but have things changed in the past 25 or 30 years at that level? Yes. In my view, yes.
What does that look like? And is it, because right now, in the moment, it's the reverse of the frog in the boiling water. Sorry, frog. We all feel like it's chaotic, it's dangerous, it's scary, it's uneasy. And maybe we have pointed the ship as far as humanity goes in the quote unquote wrong direction. I'm not sure if that feeling, well, wow, that's post Vietnam. Maybe that feeling's been around in humanity for a very long time. What are the differences between then and now?
Our ability to communicate instantaneously around the world. That's the major difference. Even when I was a young man, when I was your age, which is 30 years ago, things were not the way they are now. We didn't have the ability to communicate instantaneously with millions of people and hundreds of thousands of people at the drop of a hat. So what's going on around that is two things, one positive and one not so positive. The not so positive aspect of that is that more people are now aware of the challenges we're facing and of the frightening and scary aspects of that. of the possibility of, Armageddon and doomsday and all the rest, more people are confronted every day, with the kind of information that we were not confronted with 35 or 40 or 50 years ago on a regular, constant basis. Now, the positive side of our ability to communicate the way we are now able to do is that we can turn that ship around and move it into a different direction, precisely because we have the ability to do what you're doing right here, right now. That is, talking to hundreds of thousands of people in an instant, which you probably couldn't have done when you were, my age 50 years ago. Of course, 50 years ago, you were only 4 years old, and now you're only acting like a 4-year-old, but you're actually 54.
Child at heart.
To be serious for a moment, the ability that we have to communicate with each other has both it's a two-sided coin. It has a positive and it has a negative side. So our opportunity is to use that positive side, just as you're doing right now.
I think that's a really interesting question that I can see both ways. I can see huge positives out of it and challenges. I'm sure this has been written about before, and so I am not coining the term, but I haven't heard it elsewhere yet. We are entering what I'm calling the disinformation age. We've come through the information age, and we're going where there is such connectivity, such instant. Heck, I can buy a phone today where I can one click of the button, and I'm in a photo of somebody else. I could even have my arm around this somebody else, and you won't be able to tell that I wasn't. That to me can drive us on the inside to where we have to check everything on the inside. But if we're not ready for that, how do we even work through that?
Well, you've just made the point that I made a minute ago when I talked about the negative side of our ability to communicate. We're talking a little bit about AI, artificial intelligence, and what is AI going to do to us? Can we, in fact, insert ourselves in a picture with our arm around somebody that we never were in the actual picture? So yeah, it's a very good question. That's the challenge, Michael, that's facing us. I don't have an answer. I can't give you a 2-sentence answer to that. But I think just our being aware, the fact that we are aware of those possibilities and of those challenges makes it equally possible for us to avoid them, or to not just sidestep them, but to resolve them. That is, to solve the problem by reinventing ourselves within the context of the challenges that you've just described.
So thank you. So I want to go with that word reinvent, because I was going to ask you, what's the one single most important we can ask ourselves at this time? And maybe it has to do with reinvention.
Well, the AI thing is, I was just sitting here thinking when you mentioned that ability to put things into a picture that can't really be real. I mean, no one would actually believe that a person would be wearing a pair of yellow glasses. But I do understand that artificially you have placed a pair of yellow glasses on your face to make people think that you actually wear a pair of glasses with yellow frames, but nobody really does that in real life. So folks, just so you know, you're looking, the gig is up, and you're looking at artificial intelligence displaying itself right in front of your face.
Max Headroom, meet Inspire Nation. Meet. So what's the one most important question we can ask ourselves right now to be a personal domino, if not a domino of greatness? How's that?
What are you willing to be in the next moment of your life? And with whom are you willing to be it? That would be the question that I ask myself every day. Neale, what are you willing to be? Not what are you willing to do, but what are you willing to be in the next moment of your life, and with whom are you willing to be it? And if the answer comes back, I'm willing to be pure love, and I'm willing to be pure love with everyone whose life I touch. If we answer in those ways, and if everyone were to answer in that way, honestly, I think the world could change virtually overnight. So the question is, please forgive me for going on about this, but the question is, what does each person choose to be what state of beingness do we choose to step into and to demonstrate and to express and to experience as we interact with all the people whose lives we touch? You know what's interesting? Sociologists tell us that the average person will touch around 125,000 people in their lifetime. Now, that's an interesting statistic, because if that's true, then just between you and me, just the two of us, we're talking about close to 500,000 people.
Yeah.
And if we have four of us in the same room, we're talking about four people being able to reach 1 million people or touch 1 million people in their lifetime. How we touch them is what's going to create tomorrow.
The expression, if everything is God, nothing isn't. In other words, if we use that term pure love and present everything we can, or do our best to bring it back and bring it back and bring it back, because I don't know about you, but you checked your pulse at the beginning. I'll check my pulse. There's still a nervous system in here. There's still a heartbeat. There's still a nervous system. There's still a reaction. But if I can bring it back to pure love and back to pure love, that then may change everything.
It could change everything virtually overnight. And so the question is not whether it can, but whether it will. That is, whether we choose that particular route. And that's a question that people can only answer for themselves. Those who are watching right here today have the answer to that question.
Do you ever forget the question?
No, I did. You know, it honestly, in my 30s and 40s,
Yeah.
and in my early 50s, but I have not lost track of the question in my 60s or my 70s. It's constantly in front of me. Who do I choose to be, and with whom do I choose to be it? You know, and it's challenging. It's challenging for me because sometimes who I choose to be, I don't choose to be with regard to a particular person. So I have to make up my mind. What causes me to change my mind about who I am with regard to another human being?
Fear?
Ego. You mentioned ego earlier in this telecast. Ego, fear, and my false idea about who I am and why I'm here. I mean, why I'm on the planet. What am I doing here in the limited time that I have on the earth? Now, I've been here 81 years.
Yeah.
But I swear it feels like 31. I don't know how 81 years could go by so fast, but what I do know now at the age of 81 is that every moment is golden and filled with opportunity.
I'm thinking about, forgive me, I want to use the word kids and youth, and I'm going back to 30s, which is just crazy that I'm calling people, if you're listening, calling you kids or youth. Well, I guess you got youth. It seems just as important. You're at this leader-ish race, but it seems that if humanity is driving itself toward the cliff, even if you're in your 20s, 30s, or younger, you're in the same horse race of asking these important questions now at whatever age you may be at. It was something that maybe was a luxury years ago, but now we have to ask it as soon as we can.
Yes, precisely. That is, you've outlined the challenge and the opportunity beautifully in those last few sentences. That's exactly what's true. But I think what's wonderful about it is that the 30 and 40-year-olds have much more opportunity and more information at their disposal. That is, today's 30 and 40-year-old is far better informed and far more clear about what's going on and the opportunity that they have to play a particular role in their life. Way more clear than I was when I was in my 30s. There's no question about it. So again, there's that two-sided coin.
Do you think the younger generation is coming in, dare I say, upgraded or more suited or more ready for whatever we're going through?
I'm not sure that we're more ready, but we're more able for reasons I've just described. So I can't assess whether we're more ready, but I think that we're more able, and frankly, I think we're more willing, because I think that more of the 30 and 40 and 50-year-olds, the younger people in my world, uh, I think that more of that group are committed to doing something important to make the changes we need to make. When I was in my 30s, I didn't see that level of commitment among my contemporaries.
We've discussed before that life can't exist just on Earth, just in this Earth school or this Earth drama. Do you believe spirits, in a sense, whatever we want to call it, have queued up and said, let me in at this time? I want to be part of the game.
That's an interesting question. Part of me yearns to say yes. Yeah, I want to say yes. I want to say that there are souls who have done exactly that, who have said, okay, put me in the game. I'm ready now, and I want to be of help. So the part of me that thinks optimistically would like to think that there are souls who have, and I want to also place into the discussion another aspect of that. There may be not just souls, but living physical beings, but from other worlds, from other places in the cosmos, who are seeing what's happening on this planet, remembering when their own civilization reached the same choice point, the same crossroads. And I think that this is going to sound kind of strange, but I think that they may be visiting, bringing one or two ambassadors, so to speak, here, and placing them on the planet to see if we could maybe receive some help.
Are they walking then amongst us and appear to be as us?
I think so. I think that I'm not talking about, several 100,000, but I think that there are a number of extraterrestrials, if you please, who are, yes, looking like us, and a lot have, fashioned themselves, have the ability to fashion themselves to look like us, and are walking among us in an effort to provide us with certain assistances.
Yeah.
Without directly changing the course of our future, but bringing us, information, influences, and energies that could assist us as we reach this choice point that we are now facing.
Wow. I need to ask more about that, but it makes me think of if we had a chat room, which we will for this show. And in the chat room, if one person sours and starts screaming or doing whatever sour thing that they're doing, and I love everybody, period, no matter what. But if they do that, it can change the energy of the whole room. It doesn't take that many. And that sounds like, in a very positive way, what you're talking about.
Yes. And I think that there are beings among us who are attempting to do precisely that.
Is this something that you've understood for a long time? Is this something you've heard in your conversations with God? Or is this something that just intuitively, it feels like this must be the case?
Both. I did hear about it in my conversations with God 30 years ago. And also, it feels intuitively like something that must be happening right now. So the answer to your question is not either or, but both. Yes, both.
How much then do you feel we're, I guess, loved? The universe is pure love, loved and supported by the universe to make it through this time?
Well, I think we are endlessly loved. The question is not how much we are loved, but how much love are we willing to embrace and to accept and to bring into our lives? Loving others, for us to love others is a big enough challenge. But the bigger challenge for most people is to be able to receive love
Bingo.
from another. And I've learned that in my life. I'm married, just to be personal for a moment. I'm married to an extraordinary human being. My wife is just a wonderful, wonderful person. And every day I'm confronted with the question, how much love can I receive? How much love am I willing to receive?
I'm going back to when you were homeless. Forgive me, since we're going on the personal side. At that point or up to that point, were you willing to receive love? And if not, how have you changed? Because so many of us, just like you said, when you ask that question, am I willing to act from pure love? We put up our walls, we put up our barriers, we go, only so much I can take.
Yeah, no, I don't think I was willing to receive love at the level that would have benefited me ultimately and enormously. So I don't think that I was ready to receive love. But here's what's sad. While I may not have been ready to receive love, I don't think that I knew that I wasn't ready to receive love. That is, I didn't know what was going on with me.
Yeah.
What happened to me after my conversations with God is I suddenly became aware of myself in a new way, at a new level. And then I could see myself not being willing to receive love and opening to a higher level of willingness to, in fact, receive love. So what happened to me after my conversations with God is it was like somebody threw back the curtains on a window that I could look into myself. But when I was 25 and 35 and 45, in those years of my life, I wasn't even aware of myself sufficiently to know that I wasn't willing to receive love. I now know why my previous marriages failed, but I didn't know when they were failing because, of course, if I'd known when they were failing, they wouldn't have failed. So only in retrospect is 2020.
Okay. So for everybody out there who's going, how do I know if I'm willing to receive pure love or not? Or to what extent? What's a litmus test, or what's a way to check in without having to have an NDE or a an overhaul of ourselves or hitting a tree, for instance?
Well, there's no one way for I wish there was a one size fits all answer to your question, because we could solve the problem here in 30 seconds. But I don't think there is an answer that works for every single human being who's tuned into this particular telecast. So, but I do, in the broadest sense, imagine that the opportunity is for us to simply check. I hate to sound so sophomoric, so simplistic, but I think the opportunity is to just check in with yourself and see how you're feeling about yourself, about love, about life, and about your experience in the moment. And that's a process that I wasn't engaged in when I was in my 30s and 40s. But I now check in with myself far more frequently. Neale, how does this feel to you? And does this feel true and real and honest and good and joyful?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there some kind of a feeling that's out of sync with who you know yourself to really be? So I am checking in now, much more than I did when I was a younger person. I just wish I knew then what I know now, because I would have hurt a lot fewer people. Michael, I hurt a lot of people in my 30s and 40s. I behaved in ways that were not kind, that were hurtful. And I don't think I would behave in those ways now. I wish that I had known in my 30s and 40s what I know today. And so I put that in kind of an interesting way. So old, so soon, so smart, so late.
Is it a cop out statement to say that yes, there are certainly things that I would be happy to do over. On the other hand, it either made you who you are or gave you the fuel to do the work that you're doing now.
I think both things are true. I think it's a cop-out statement. But I don't think that it's necessary
Yeah.
for me to have done what I did. Now, is it true that the way I was then has created the way I am now in certain ways and to some degree? Of course, that's true. All of us are the sum total of our experience. So certainly that would be true. But I don't think that it's necessary, that it was necessary for me to go to take that particular pathway. And I had the tragic experience, Michael, of being present when my first wife, we were no longer together. We had been apart for 17 years, but we shared children together. And I was there when my first wife passed away. I was there in the room. She was in a coma and she was with her children and my children, our children, and my daughter invited me. She said, Mom is dying. Could you come over? And so I came over to my daughter's house and her mom, my first wife, who I'd been married to years before, 35, 40 years before, I was able to say to her in her final moments of life how sorry I was and how grateful I was that she found it in her heart to forgive me my trespasses. And I said to her, what a saint you have been to have put up with me and still allowed yourself to be generous enough that we could co-parent our children, and you didn't hold me against me. You didn't hold it against me that I was who I was. I'm so sorry that it took me so long to grow up, but thank you for being so far ahead of me in your spiritual development. And I was able to at least share with her my truth before she left. She died the next day.
Without words. It's rare on a show that you need words. I'm without words, Neale. I'm hopeful. I don't know if the new gen is getting the lesson sooner. Maybe, maybe through things like this. We are, they are, whatever we call it. How do we're feeling now collectively, at least that's my belief, we feel lost, How do we feel unlost, less lost, or begin to figure out if there's not one path, one plan? How do we figure out in this world where we're just starting to learn about ourselves, where in the world we go from here?
Well, I don't think that all of us feel lost. I think there's a small number, I mean, relatively on a percentage basis. I think there's a percentage of us that do not feel lost. They literally feel that they finally have found their way. People like Thich Nhat Hanh, people like,
Mhm.
um, I could name, there's no, Eckhart Tolle and others, Byron Katie, people like that. Extraordinary human beings who don't feel lost at all. If you talk to Byron Katie on this program and said, "Oh, how do you deal with feeling lost?" She'd look at you and say, "Michael, I don't feel lost."
Yeah.
So, the answer to the question, or in the broadest sense, is if those people who do not feel lost can help the rest of us find ourselves, and if we can then turn around and pass it on and share with others whose lives we touch what it is we understand ourselves to know about this subject, we can reach critical mass. So, you know, we do what we can do. Some of us maybe want to write a book, and then we drop the whole idea because it's too much for us to finish. We can't finish the book that we started because we become overwhelmed by our own book. But maybe we then decide, you know what, I'm going to write the book anyway. And I'm going to continue doing what else I'm doing to share my understanding with those whose lives I touch. And you know what's interesting about that, Michael? You are the age that I was when I wrote Conversations with God. I think I was 54. So it took me half century to get to the place where I was ready to acknowledge that maybe there's something that I could add to the conversation, something that I could add to the process. Maybe there's some way that I could be a source of, if nothing else, inspiration, a source of inspiration for others. And you have the opportunity to do that and to be that right now. You are being it by doing programs like you're doing right here.
I will come back to the show, Neale, and the tears are starting again and again and again, because I've been talking with my team, talking about my wife, talking about what our future pivots look like. Look at all of these things. I think life is an eternal pivot, maybe. It can have a throughput line, but a pivot around that line. And we talked last year about a book, and we talked about it before the show that didn't come out. That's okay. We're going at it again. But I did the math, and with the classes I teach, the personal shows I do on my own, and the newsletter that I put out every day, I write a refined writing, not just raw draft, about 5,000 pages a year that do not come out in any sort of book form yet. And if there is one thing that pulls on my heart, having a center, oh, that pulls tremendously. But if there's one thing, it's book time. So thank you, Neale. Thank you, Neale. So I'm going to bring it back to everybody here today. What are some steps we can take in our own personal development, personal advancement, personal knowledge of ourselves, or getting back to pure love at this time?
Step number one is decide who you are. To really take a close look at who am I? What is this entity here? Is this who I am? This body of mine? Is this who I am? Or is this who I am? Am I my mind? Or am I some combination of my body and my mind? Is that who I am? My answer is no, I'm neither. I am neither this, nor am I this, nor am I a combination of the two. I think these are simply tools, pieces of equipment that I use, pieces of equipment that are used by who I really am.
Yeah.
So step number one is to decide, who are you really? And my answer, that doesn't have to be anyone else's answer, but the answer that I've decided is I am a spiritual entity. Oh, I see. I'm not this. I'm not this. I'm a spiritual being. I'm going to call it a soul. I am a soul using these tools to advance my agenda. So what are the steps we can take? First step is to just decide who you are. Because if you think you are this, you'll do stuff like open restaurants, run bowling alleys, try to get the best job you can possibly find. You'll be engaged with activities and functions that impact this particular thing that you call your body.
Mm-hmm.
So, your priorities which will shift dramatically should you decide that, oh, I see, I'm a spiritual entity having a physical experience. Step number two is to answer the question, why? If I really am what Neale suggests, a spiritual entity having a physical experience, why? Why am I doing this? Why am I here? What's the point of this whole thing? If I'm a spiritual entity, why don't I just stay in the realm of the spiritual? Why did I come here? So that's step number two, is answering the question, why? Step number 3 is to decide, where are you? Who am I? Why am I
Mhm.
doing what I'm doing? And where am I? Where am I right now? And the fourth and final step is to ask yourself the question, what do I intend to do about that? What do I intend to do? In answer to the first 3 questions, what do I intend to do? When we ask and answer all 4 of those questions, we've taken the steps that I have discovered that can bring us to the place that you are describing, a place of fulfillment. I could be wrong, of course, about all of that.
As can be I. As can be I. What have you? Let's go there. What did you think was black? And yes, I'm leading the witness here. That turned out to be white, because we live in a black and white world. Um, over over this last 30 years, or even more recently, what did you say? Oh, I thought it was this way. What I've learned since then is, ta-da.
Yeah, basically love. I thought it was a trade deal. I thought that love was a trade deal.
Yeah,
Like nations have trade deals with other nations. We'll give you
yeah,
this, you give me that.
yeah.
And so what I thought was one way turned out to be a totally different way. I thought that love was, I love you if. And then I discovered after my conversations with God that love has nothing to do with I love you if. It's I love you because of who you are and because of who I am. But I don't need anything in return. So what I've learned that's different
Yeah.
from what I thought was true when I was in my 30s and 40s is that love is not a quid pro quo. Love is not a tit for tat arrangement. It's not, I'll give you this, you give me that. True love, pure love, requires, asks for, hopes for, and certainly demands, and needs nothing in return. Most people can't even love the person on the pillow next to them in that way. But it got to a place when I was able to turn to the person on the pillow next to me
Yeah.
and say, I need and require nothing from you in order to love you forever. Because I don't love you in hopes of getting something in return. Like I did when I was in my 30s and 40s. That's not how I am anymore. In the old days, I was just loving myself, using the other person as a
Mhm.
means through which to do that. But now I can turn to that person on the pillow next to me and say, you know what? I love you no matter what. Even if I get nothing in return from you, you couldn't stop me from loving you if you tried. Because I don't love you because of what I'm getting out of you. I love you because of who you are. I see you. I see you. You can't fool me. I see who you are,
Yeah.
whether you give me part of that or not. And that's why I love you. And so I guess what I have learned through the years, what I saw as black or white, what I saw as something over here that's changed is my whole understanding of what real love is about. I finally decided to try to love others the way God loves us, without condition.
Would you call that the golden rule?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's exactly what he was talking about.
And you apply that, and how hard was it? I'm going to speak for myself. Crazy hard. So hard that when I first started saying I love myself, I broke things. It was ugly. How hard was it? And how have you applied that rule, that love, to yourself unconditionally?
I'm going to backtrack just 1 second because I just realized that it's not really the golden rule.
Okay.
That I'm talking about is the platinum rule. Platinum, by the way,
Ooh.
is more, platinum is actually more valuable than gold. The golden rule says, do unto others as you would have it done unto yourself,
Yeah.
as you would have it done unto you. The platinum rule is, do unto others as they would have it done unto them.
Yeah.
That's the platinum rule. I have changed my idea of, as I said, you know, what is the real expression of pure love? How hard has it been? It's been the struggle of my life. It's been the challenge of my life. And Michael, I'm not sure that I'm there yet at the finish line, but I'm closer than I ever have been. You know, using a football analogy, I think I'm on the 2 yard line.
No.
And most of my life, I felt that I was somewhere on my own 30.
Yeah.
But now I think I'm on the 2 yard line. And I think I'm just, one short pass away, just a pass into the end zone. And if my darling can catch that pass, we can both win the game.
Are you excited for when you cross that line? And what do you want to learn then that you haven't been able to learn here?
I don't think there's anything to learn, but what I would experience then is who I really am,
Yeah.
the totality of my true identity. And yes, that does excite me. It does enervate me. It does cause me to feel exhilarated because I do think that when I cross that finish line, I can finally achieve what I came here to experience.
Okay, well, there's not a contradiction. Irony? What is the word? Not juxtaposition. I will have finally achieved when I cross that finish line, I will have finally achieved what I came here to finish or to
To
I don't know,
experience.
to experience. But you won't experience it here, you'll be experiencing it there, which means can we create heaven on earth?
Well, no, no, no. I said when I crossed that finish line. I'm not suggest. I didn't understand you to mean the finish line meaning the end of my physical life.
Okay, okay. Clarification. Woohoo!
I'm really hoping that I can get to that finish line before I leave my body, this particular body.
Yes.
And it's my hope that, when I pass away and leave this particular body, that those around me who have known me can say, it took him a while, but he finally made it. He finally made it.
Are you sure you haven't made it already?
Yes, I am. I am sure I haven't made it already because I watch myself every day. I watch how I behave. I
Yeah.
watch how I interact.
Yeah.
Am I 98% there? I think so. Am I
Yeah.
closer to that finish line than I was, 10 or 15 or 20 years ago? Yes. But have I crossed the finish line? No,
Gotcha.
no. I just watched myself lose patience with my loved one just 3 days ago. I'm not gonna, and I walk into my room, my bedroom, thinking, who was that? Who was that? Who was that out there in the living room talking that way? Come on, Neale. Grow up, get there. Stop talking about it and actually do it. So I don't want to be a person who talks a good game,
Yeah.
but can't play.
Well, you've called it, thank you for sharing. You've called it belief mod in the past. What is it that you do? Is it the observation, the speaking to yourself, all of it, none of it, something else that takes you that incremental from that second yard line to the touchdown? How do you do that? How do we all do that?
I think by noticing what's going on, by being honest with ourselves, and then I use a question that's gotten me this far. It's what I call life's magic question. when I get into a situation where I start to feel myself not being wholly and completely the person I'd like to be, when I catch myself into a moment of life where things are not agreeable, events are occurring that are not welcome,
Yeah.
I ask myself life's magic question. What does this have to do with the agenda of my soul?
Mm.
Now, what does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? And the answer comes back immediately, inevitably, and completely. And then I can step into my answer to that question. So if my darling wife and I are having a moment where we aren't getting along as well as we would like, I can look across the kitchen and say to myself, okay, what does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? And by stepping into the answer to that question, I can get down to the 1 yard line and maybe cross the finish line before I'm done here.
Woohoo! On that note, Neale, where can people go to find out more about your work, your books? And I believe you have a mentoring program for a very small number of individuals, but a mentoring program coming up as well.
People can just go to, you know, NealeDonaldWalsch.com. It's really quite simple. I have a website there, and they can find out all they want to know about any activity that I'm involved in, and that they may wish to join in, participate with us in the work that we are doing. We have a nonprofit foundation called the Recreation Foundation. The purpose of life is to recreate ourselves anew in the next grandest version of the greatest vision ever we held about who we are. So people can just go to NealeDonaldWalsch.com and they'll find me there.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. As we wrap this up, curious, any words you want to share, anything that you've learned over the last few years that you haven't thought of or haven't mentioned, or basically, simply put, are you hopeful for the future?
Oh yes, I'm hopeful for the future. Uh, as we mentioned earlier, I don't think anything is guaranteed in terms of the number of human beings that are going to move forward with our species, but I am hopeful for the future, yes. And as long as we have people who are willing to go for that Hail Mary pass and throw the ball into the touchdown, as long as we have people who are willing to step into the process and become part of a solution, I think that there is reason to be hopeful. So what I would say to people is, what I've learned in my life is what I was told in my conversations with God. Neale, your life is not about you. It's about everyone whose life you touch and the way in which you touch it. Yet when you experience that, when you realize that, Neale, you will experience a universal truth that in the cosmic sense, your life is about you as a result of the way in which you are touching the lives of others for an elegant reason. There's only one of us in the room.
We get to anchor that in. Thank you so much, Neale. This has been beautiful. This has been amazing. I don't think I've cried this much on a show in a very long time, at least without maybe fire ants biting me. So, for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, be all the domino you can be, and march that domino from the 2 yard line to the 1 yard line and to the finish line out of pure love. And above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Thank you so much, Neale.
You're welcome, my friend. Good to be with you.
It's good to be with you too. We're out. This was beautiful. This was special. This was sacred. Can't thank you enough.
It was lovely to be here with you, my friend. Travel well.
Wow, wow, wow. Special, sacred, no superlatives, amazing, incredible, noteworthy, tear-worthy. What a special show with Neale Donald Walsch. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. On that note, if you want to bring your energy up, way up on a daily basis, I've got 3 ways you can do it. First, Daily Woohoo. Go to dailywoohoo.com where I bring your energy up each and every day. Second, learn automatic writing so you can have your own conversations with your angels, with your guides, with your higher power, with our higher power, with our oneness, and with our loved ones on the other side of the veil. It's automaticwriting.com. And last but not least, third, join the School of Mystics, where we meet 4 Wednesdays every single month, live and recorded. We bring our energy up. We learn new techniques to rediscover who we are, that energetic being, that divine, immortal, energetic being, at playing the game at the highest level. We have clearings, attunements, and so much more. That's that link down below. I send so much love your way, and keep on shining bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Lots of love, lots and lots of love for you.